Good evening. You are tuning in to AWANI Tonight with me, Farhana Sheikh. PMO insists all government actions done in accordance with law and the federal constitution. And a construction worker was killed after the scaffolding at the LRT3 construction site in Bandar Bukit Tinggi, Kelang collapsed. That's coming up. The Prime Minister's office has insisted that all actions of the government are orderly and in accordance with provisions of law and the federal constitution. In a 4-page statement, Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin said he had written a letter to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong on July 23rd advising the ruler to revoke the emergency ordinances and again in an audience on July 27th.
During the session, the Prime Minister has once again presented the advice from the Cabinet regarding the revocation of the emergency ordinances and made clarifications on the confusion that happened in the Dewan Rakyat session. The Prime Minister had informed the government's view that all ordinances do not need to be revoked by Parliament, seeing that the Cabinet has decided to advise His Majesty to revoke it. Furthermore, as the special sitting of the Parliament only involved ministerial briefings, there were no motions to revoke the emergency ordinances. Therefore, the Cabinet has decided to advise the King to revoke the emergency ordinances before the start of the special sitting.
Opposition leader and PKR President Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim today announced that he had filed a formal bid for motion to remove Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin as the Prime Minister. This, he claimed, as the Premier has lost the confidence of the majority of the MPs. He relayed the matter to the Speaker of Dewan Rakyat in a meeting earlier this evening. Anwar said he is representing the MPs after the statement by Istana Negara saying the Yang di-Pertuan Agong had not assented to revoke the emergency ordinances as claimed by the government. When asked what can he expect of Monday's proceeding, here is his answer.
We don't know, but according to the Speaker, the decision will be, to proceed on the discussion on the emergency, the ordinance.
So as far as emergency...
But of course, I will table our motion to seek the removal of the Prime Minister.
Has the motion been accepted by the Speaker?
The Speaker has already accepted.
He has accepted?
Yes. Accepted means certified receipt.
There is no other USO on the government table, right?
No.
So this is the only one?
Yeah, but then they say the order of the day is going to discuss the emergency ordinance to be tabled by the Minister of Law, which to me have lost his stature, standing and credibility to present the case as a person whom even the King has said misled the Dewan. Okay?
Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob has assured that the Purikata national government still commands the majority support in Dewan Rakyat. In a statement issued in his capacity as the Chief Whip for PN in the Dewan Rakyat, he insists that Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin has the support of more than 110 MPs. This is despite fresh doubts on his hold to power after the King today rebuked the government for misleading Parliament over the status of the emergency ordinances. Ismail Sabri did not directly use the phrase majority support, but more than 110 MPs support would indicate as such because there are currently 220 MPs. With all the development that went on today, what should be the next course of action for the Purikata national government? We asked political analyst Dr. Hamidin Hamid.
I think now it is the burden on Tan Sri Muhyiddin to prove that his government is valid government and to prove that he has majority and command a majority of the members of the parliament. So I think it is about time for him really to show that he has a number and he must do that in parliament.
The handling of the emergency ordinances has led Malaysia into a constitutional crisis. Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests to help make sense of this turbulent day in Malaysian democracy. A construction worker was killed after the scaffolding at the LRT3 construction site in Bandar Bukit Tinggi, Kelang collapsed today. The victim was identified as a Bangladesh national. Selangor Fire and Rescue Department Director Nur Azam Khamis said they received a call about the incident at about 2:40 p.m. He said the victim was successfully recovered from the rubble at 4:20 p.m. Besides that, 3 Bangladeshi men and an Indonesian man in their 30s also suffered minor injuries. We'll take a short break. Stay with us.
Amanah di tangan kita. Adat, budaya dan semangat menjadi kesinambungan perpaduan tanah air yang tercinta. Berteraskan adab yang terpahat di jiwa dan raga. Marilah bersama kita membina negara Malaysia. Semua yang terjadi adalah berita, tetapi tiada siapa yang boleh bawakan yang terkini dan tergempar seperti kami.
Dilihat hanya
Welcome back. As the country grapples to tackle issues related to the pandemic, underlying problems such as protecting nature and wildlife have been getting less attention. On Global Tiger Day, we speak to Perak State Parks Corporation's Director, Shah Reza Hussain, as he highlights the crucial efforts needed to save the vulnerable Malayan tiger population. Shah stressed the need to ensure proper COVID-19 restrictions are put in place to curb the spread of the virus, without compromising conservation efforts.
In terms of a patrolling program, it falls under essential services. You see, the poachers and wildlife needs to be protected with or without the pandemic. What we need to prepare better post-COVID is to ensure that proper protocols are in place so that programs, protection programs and research programs for wildlife to be able to continue in the event that there are other PKPs or MCOs in the future. So what we need to do is to ensure that our protection and research on conservation of the wildlife, including the tigers, be set in the right procedures and protocol.
The biggest threats to the survival of the Malayan tiger, he said, are habitat loss and illegal poaching. Shah added that the COVID-19 pandemic has somehow shed some light on ways to better address poaching.
One of the positive outcome of the PKP or MCO during the pandemic is that we had more roadblocks, so the positive thing with more roadblocks is we see that poachers have more difficulties in traveling on the road. Okay, and this has actually impacted the number of poaching crimes. Obviously they are afraid to be stopped at the numerous roadblocks, tens and tens of roadblocks, So especially the foreign poachers, the Indo-Chinese, Vietnamese, Laos, they don't take the risk of going out on the road, fearing that they will be stopped and searched, at roadblocks. So one lesson we can learn is that post-COVID or post-PKP, it is essential at areas that we identify as probably target poaching areas to continue having roadblocks.
On to the international front, police in Australia's largest city have requested military help to enforce a COVID-19 lockdown as infections in Sydney reach a new record today. Despite a 5-week lockdown that is set to run until the end of August, New South Wales recorded 239 local transmission in the past 24 hours, the biggest daily rise since the pandemic began. New South Wales Police had asked for 300 Australian Defence Force personnel to be deployed to boost its operational footprint. Stay-at-home orders have failed to reduce new infections and compliance has been patchy. Sydney residents are only allowed to leave their homes for exercise, essential work and medical reasons, but for weeks, parks and beaches have been filled with people. Police have increasingly been doling out fines to those violating the restrictions and they have asked for more powers to shut down businesses not abiding with SOPs. Last weekend, thousands of people gathered in central Sydney to protest against the measures. Further demonstrations are anticipated. The International Olympic Committee said that it saw no connection between the current rise of COVID-19 cases in Japan and the Games. This as newly reported cases in Tokyo surged to a record high of 3,865 today. The IOC also revealed 2 people attending the Olympics from overseas have been admitted to the hospital, but neither case was serious. According to spokesman Mark Adams, over 310,000 tests have been carried out at the Games so far, and only a small fraction of which were positive, adding that no infection has spread from participants in the Games to the Japanese population.
As far as I'm aware, there's not a single case of an infection spreading to the Tokyo population from the athletes or Olympic movement. So I can't really go beyond that and simply say also that as far as I'm aware, also not a single severe case has occurred amongst our stakeholders.
Japanese officials sounded alarm after Tokyo reported record-breaking COVID cases for 3 straight days. The National Institute of Infectious Diseases has estimated that the Delta variant is now responsible for about 70% of infections in Tokyo. The Delta variant of COVID-19 has spread to 132 countries and regions around the world. This is according to a report released by the World Health Organization. It is also reported that more than 3.8 million new cases of COVID-19 were confirmed globally between July 19th and 25th. This increase was attributed mainly to a spike in cases in the Americas and the Western Pacific region. The number of COVID-19 patients in the Americas grew by 30% and the Western Pacific region by 25%. At the same time, the number of new deaths last week reached more than 69,000, up 21% from the previous week. The cumulative total of global COVID-19 cases surpassed 194.6 million, with the death toll exceeding 4.17 million as of Tuesday. Meanwhile, in an effort to boost vaccination, New York City will be offering $100 to any resident who gets a first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. To receive the money, New Yorkers will have to go to city-run vaccination sites. In a news conference, Mayor Bill de Blasio announced that the initiative will take effect on Friday. The effort to boost the city's vaccination rate comes as jurisdictions across the United States seek to boost effort to curb the spread of the highly transmissible Delta variant. New York City and the state have already offered other vaccination incentives, including lottery tickets, scholarships, free subway rides, and complimentary tickets to museums, sports games, and other attractions. Beginning in September, New York City is mandating that all municipal employees, including police officers, teachers, and firefighters, either get vaccinated or be subject to weekly virus testing. Myanmar vaccinated more than 600 inmates in the country's main prison on the first day of a drive to inoculate inmates against COVID-19. This as military authorities struggle to control a wave of infections across the country. According to prison officials, 610 inmates were vaccinated yesterday. More would be inoculated in coming days depending on the supply of the vaccines. So far, 2,500 inmates had registered to be vaccinated out of more than 9,000 in the jail. Infections have surged since June, with 4,980 cases and 365 deaths reported on Wednesday. That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Get the latest news update on COVID-19 and COVID-19 vaccines from astroawani.com and Astro Awani app. I'm Farhana Sheikh. We'll see you again.